Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Victory Road World Cup of Pokemon VGC, brought to you by GG Tour, Metafi, and Elgato. My name is Mabel Rourke. It has been 8 weeks, but I am finally now casting with my good friend Jamie Boyd. Jamie, I am so psyched to be on the mic with you this weekend for what is going to be a very exciting another day of top 8 matches.
Yeah, absolutely. Quarterfinals, the first round with a fraction, so that you know that it is getting closer and closer to that championship. So yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. We've got some great matches coming forward for you today. So if you are interested in all of these matches, upcoming and previous, then make sure you are following us on our socials. You can follow us on Twitter at Victory Road VGC. All the matches that will be played on here will also go on the YouTube channel Victory Road VGC. You should hopefully be watching us right now on the Twitch channel. Please follow us on Victory Road VGC as well, and join the Discord as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you went for fractions, ever the maths teacher, both in and out of school. However, though, there is a ton of stuff going on, like you said, even on the World Cup VGC website too. But a thing that we are now thinking of, right, as we are in this top 8, we might want to take a look at the bracket and see how the players who are here now at this point fared in their past week in top 16. Currently, Taiwan lost to Canada, Singapore lost to India, Peru lost to Australia, Brazil lost to South Korea, making up one side of the bracket. So currently we have Canada versus India and Australia versus South Korea. And then on the right side of the bracket, what was the United States and Netherlands? The United States trumped over. France beat Italy in what was a very interesting matchup last week as well. Thailand was able to beat Japan, and Poland was able to beat Argentina. So currently Poland and Thailand and France in the United States. So some players and some teams that we have seen from last year's top 8, but quite a lot of newcomers as well. Australia, like we saw last year, never made it out of that first stage of competition, and they had a big chip on their shoulder this year, and definitely have made it into a great state for them. All of the teams that are currently in top 8 right now as well will get that bye in the first round of the World Cup next year. So already these teams have already gotten what is going to be a great prize for the next year, but they're still all fighting for that prize money at the end and to be crowned the champions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point that that they will have the bye for the next World Cup as well. But yeah, there is prize money on the line, so of course they want to be advancing further than this quarterfinals, and there are some very, very strong teams here for sure. So those are the teams that are in the top 8, and we can see what we are going to be featuring today. Another round of 5 matches for everyone to watch. We're going to be starting off with Thailand versus Poland, with Narawitch Naenna versus Szymon Wojdat. Then we'll be moving on to Canada versus India, with Neil Patel versus Devon Singh. United States versus France will then have a double header with Joseph Ugarte versus Alex Liss. Then Niels Dunlop versus Thomas Guavui. And then finishing off with Australia versus South Korea, we've got Ben Madigan versus Hyungwoo Shin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to have that doubleheader for the United States today. I know we had a doubleheader yesterday as well, but there's still, I think all of these matches are still pretty decisive. I know at the first match, if we want to kind of take a jump in to our Poland and Thailand match, we can take a quick look and see how close this match currently is. Showing 3-0 of Thailand over Poland. Thailand also went and started 4-0 against Japan last week. So they currently only need to win one more match to put themselves into those semifinals and get themselves out of the quarterfinals. Now, we were able to see yesterday Papan Girawat was playing against Alexandra Schweikel yesterday. And that was a really interesting match, right? That triple steal type. Really interesting. I know, I believe Hayden, one of our co-casters for today, also was on that match yesterday. So interested to see exactly how these players and how these teams are maybe going to practice for both the games this weekend, if they went for something similar along the lines of team building. You know, Panyawut and Papan's teams are very similar, a couple of key differences, but interesting to still have both the Ferrothorn and then the double genies and a couple of different things here. And, I think on the Poland side as well, a lot of differences in that team building, but the Poland team has been so strong this year. I think they were one of the teams that were a little bit more of an underdog team kind of moving into this stage of the competition. And I know that they still have a lot to prove, right? So you have to imagine that Szymon is going to be playing as really playing with all of his heart at this point to make sure that his team can still stay in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting the win over Japan has given them some very good momentum here, it seems. Going 3-0 with 4 match points is absolutely where you need to be. So they are incredibly close. We may see them advance into the semi-finals here on the stream right now with this match. So that will be very interesting to see if they can do that.
Yeah, and I mean at this point too, right? If you are able to kind of transition into that top four, they know that they're either going to be playing the United States or France, which is really, and they're going. This is the nice thing about the playoffs itself is every team you face is truly a Goliath of a team. You're not really looking at any of these teams and thinking, wow, I have a really easy week, because none of these weeks are easy, right? And the United States and France both, I believe, also kind of both wrapped up, I believe, close in top 8 for the United States, and I believe top 4 for France last year, or semifinalists last year. No, top 4. But still quite a very accomplished position to be getting into Thailand. However, it'll be, I think, probably something that is, it's tough moving forward, right? Because there is at least plenty of information on the United States and France for when you're doing your prep, especially, I think they were able to prep really well against Japan last week. And I'm sure at this point too, their preparation has helped them in this match as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can move on to what the match we're going to be featuring here. Narawitch versus Szymon. It's going to be very interesting to see who's going to come out on top here, whether Thailand can advance into into the semi-finals with just that immediate win to get 4-0, or if Poland are going to start clawing back and get some momentum going.
Yeah, like you said, if we can get a look into both of our player profiles here as well. Narawitch Naenna, the first player from Thailand, I remember we got to do a couple of his matches last year. I had a privilege of casting a few of those, and they were definitely a treat, so I'm excited to once again be on the mic behind him. And I haven't been able to see any of Szymon's teams as of yet this year, but I am psyched to cast over them as well. Both of them have really great records. Szymon was a Worlds Day 2 competitor this year. Narawitch Naenna, I know, is somebody who is a huge grassroots player in Thailand. Really kind of a big group face, a big community face there for their grassroots scene. I believe he was their MVP last year for Thailand as well. Currently 2022 Thailand Nationals finalist, Victory Road January Season 12 Challenge Top 32, and World Cup competitor Top 8. So lots of great results from recent, which is really nice to have in a format that you're currently trying to win in, because you've got somebody with plenty of experience in the format currently. And then Szymon, like I said, World's Day 2 competitor, United Kingdom Nationals Top 32 in 2016, Berlin Regionals top 4 in 2016, 2014 Germany Nationals Top 8. So also success in a double restricted format in 2016.
Yeah, it's going to be two very strong players here coming out with all those accomplishments. Going to be interesting to see what they are bringing to the match as well. I know that Szymon does tend to opt on the side of consistency and going with some of the meta teams that are tried and true to be very strong. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing that here. And as you can see, we're going with the Calyrex Groudon coming out for Szymon. So that does not make that makes perfect sense completely. And coming out from Narawitch as well, we're getting that Groudon Calyrex Ice team that does seem to be picking up a little bit in popularity. I believe that's the same 6 that won the Open at the World Championships as well. So a very strong team coming out for Narawitch as well.
Yes, both won and got second. Szymon's team is the same 6 that I know my friend Santino ran. Got 46th at NAIC, used something very similar, swapped in a Gastrodon from the Venusaur for Secaucus Regionals that he got top 8 at this year as well. So it's a team composition that I thankfully do have a little bit of familiarity with. But the nice thing about when you see players use these teams, you can use the same 6 Pokemon, but the team can be entirely different, right? We've seen the metagame change a lot, especially for Pokemon like Charizard, just from really what was a couple of months ago. You were seeing maybe them run a little bit more bulky, but then we saw quite a lot of weakness policy Charizard. I know we saw a good amount of those last week as well during our matches, and they were very strong in Prevalent versus Worlds. I know I heard quite a lot of players talking in between rounds of how they were playing against a weakness policy Charizard again, really. However, though, it will be Grimmsnarls on both sides of the field, however, paired off against an Incineroar and a Charizard right out of the gate.
Yeah, Grimmsnarl Charizard, I think, has got to be the most common lead that we saw of the entirety of the World Championships. Get those screens up, get nice and bulky for the Charizard and start getting the Wildfire going. Against the Incineroar Grimmsnarl, that also wants to be playing pretty slow. You want to be getting the screens up, maybe the speed control with the Grimmsnarl as well. Go for some fake outs and passing shots to just reduce the damage output. You're not going for the immediate damage straight away with Incineroar and Grimmsnarl. You just want to be getting that damage output, but switching in Groudon, getting that Solar Power active, means that Narawitch absolutely wants to be going on the offensive here.
Yeah, very offensive play, but a Protect to pair with it with that Charizard will prevent anything like a Fake Out coming from the Incineroar, but no Fake Out as of yet. Light Screen will be the first move from the Grimmsnarl on the opposite side. Incineroar going for a Parting Shot, targeting into the Protect that was that Charizard. Solar Power will start to chip some damage, but it won't matter next turn as much when you're taking way more from it.
Yeah, that was a very nice pivot there for Narawitch. Getting in the ground on pretty much for free. It's unintimidated because the Incineroar was already on the field, avoiding the parting shot with the Protect. The Light Stream was always going to go up to the Grimmsnarl. You want to be reducing the damage output from that Charizard as it does so much damage in the sun. But now you have the opportunity of knocking out this Incineroar before any parting shots can go off. The Grimmsnarl would have to do some sort of speed control to allow that parting shot to go off. That would mean a Reflect would not be set that turn, so the Groudon would be at full power.
Yeah, and I mean, this would be the turn, right? If you are that Incineroar on the opposite side of the field that you would have wanted to switch around, but knowing that you could take something like a Max Rock Ball from that Ancient Power that Charizard can run can be really tough, but Trick is a great way to stop this Charizard from moving around as much, but it's not going to take effect until that next turn, showing it was that weakness policy, getting a lagging tail in return from the Grimmsnarl. Max Airstream into the Incineroar will be helpful to boost the speed of that Groudon Pokemon, the Groudon partner next to it. However, not going to matter for that Charizard on the next several turns as it will be moving last. Precipice Blades does connect into both of these Pokemon here, but Incineroar going to show its Shuka Berry and eat that to reduce the damage of this Precipice Blades. It's going to actually be able to hang on here as well, which I think is really huge. Grimmsnarl taking just under half, getting to just under half of its HP, but getting a parting shot from the Incineroar onto the Groudon this turn. Going to be a great way for this Incineroar to come back in later and get another Intimidate that it'll definitely love having against something like that Calyrex Ice.
Very well trained Incineroar there. That parting shot is going to be incredibly useful. The Charizard is going to be moving last for sure at the end of all of these turns now because of that lagging tail. It didn't really matter that it didn't come into effect on the turn it was activated because then the Incineroar would have parting shotted first and then the Groudon would have had to take this Airstream. You'd have much preferred the Incineroar to take that. So very nice setting that up on the Charizard. Now you can Rock Fall it or go for Stone Edge, any kind of rock move with this Groudon at any point you want into the Charizard, and it has not yet set the Wildfire going. So that residual chip is not active yet, and Szymon can just go for any kind of rock move. It seems like he's going for potentially a Rock Fall here with the Groudon, going for the Dynamax. So now that Wildfire is not really going to be an option so long as this Groudon clicks that Rock Fall into that Charizard.
He wasn't feeling brave enough to Dynamax his half HP Grimmsnarl with the weakness policy. Honestly, I respect it. Groudon probably is a much safer choice here. Max Guard, though, going to come out from this Charizard, meaning no Wildfire this turn. Grimmsnarl getting the Reflect up against that big physical attacker like that Groudon and maybe prepping for something like that Calyrex Ice Rider in back. Precipice Blades does very little damage to both of these Pokemon. Max Rock Ball from the Groudon into the Charizard, going into that Max Guard. Going to take more Solar Power Chip as it goes.
Yeah, now you need to have Incineroar on the back if you want to be potentially allowing that Charizard to survive. It may not even survive the Rock Fall coming out from the Groudon because there's no kind of screen set on the field at the moment for Narawitch because he immediately switched out the Grimmsnarl into the Groudon to go on the offensive with the Solar Power. So very, very nicely positioned for Szymon here. He's got both of the screens up, he's got the speed control on the Charizard in that lagging tail, and still can just put a stop to the Charizard going for the Wildfire and just go for the Rock Fall to take it out, switch the weather back to the Sandstorm instead. So it's still a very strong position for Szymon here.
Interesting trick here, right? Because now you're tricking the weakness policy onto this Groudon, I believe, and the Grimmsnarl gets the Assault Vest, so not going to be able to go for trick once again. Precipice Blades, though, avoids on that Grimmsnarl. Will connect onto the Groudon on the opposite side of the field, but that Grimmsnarl was really the Pokemon that I think you wanted to get off of the field. Another Max Rock Fall, but this time will connect onto the Charizard is plenty enough damage thanks to that 4-time super effective to knock Charizard out and get rid of that Dynamax. Not able to get up something like a G-Max Wildfire and setting up that Sandstorm.
That was one of the downsides of having to go for Airstream to try and knock out the Incineroar, but the fact that it didn't meant that Wildfire was probably the best thing to go for that turn because you're starting getting the chip on all of the Pokemon. The Grimmsnarl would have definitely been KO'd at this point if the Wildfire was active. The Groudon would have started to be chipped down as well, and now you've lost your Dynamax for just one Airstream because it went for the Max Guard and then just got KO'd on the third turn. At least you've got the Calyrex in now, and you know that the Grimmsnarl can't be going for any more of those tricks. It's tricked the Assault Vest onto itself, so it has to go for its offensive option. We'll maybe seeing what that is going to be. If the Groudon does miss another Precipice Blades, then it would be able to see. We don't know if it's Foul Play or Spirit Break. If it's Spirit Break, that's not going to be doing too much in this match. If it is Foul Play instead, then that would do a significant chunk to the Calyrex Ice, and that may be what is needed to do a lot of damage to it, because it's going to be able to shrug off somewhat a Rock Fall coming off from the Groudon. But you could easily go for a Trick Room this turn with the Calyrex. You just got to be wary of the Incineroar that can still be waiting in the back. At least you're going to be sorting out the turns of the Dynamax on the Groudon, so your Glacial Lance will be a lot more effective going into these future turns. But with that Reflect up and the Incineroar still in the back, that Groudon is still looking in a pretty comfortable position.
Yeah, and I mean at that point too, right? This is really important to show why that Shuka Berry on there was so important. Another Precipice Blades though will finally connect onto that Grimmsnarl, get it off of the field on this turn. Max Flare though, targeting into the Calyrex. You already know where the weakness policy was and now is. It has kind of played and switched around a little bit. So no weakness policy on this Calyrex. You are changing the weather as well to the sun. From that sandstorm, but Trick Room is able to go off here thanks to this Calyrex, who still has just under, I believe, about 40% of its HP. Light Screen wears off this turn, which means you don't have too much longer before that Reflect is gone as well.
Yeah, you've still got a couple of turns there because there was a Lagging Tail crit before that Reflect, so still going to be in play here. Going forward, the Trick Room here is very nice for the Calyrex given how low that Incineroar is. It still gets the Intimidate, but it should very much still be in Glacial Lance range at that low HP. The only awkward thing is that you gave your own Groudon on the Narawitch side an Airstream boost, so in the Trick Room it's definitely going to be going last, but it is still at full HP, so it's going to still be able to most likely survive any attacks that could come out from Szymon's side. So even the Sun boosted Fleblets and the Precipice Blades, Groudon should be bulky enough to take that. You just got to make it through this initial turn where the Incineroar can go for a fake out. The Calyrex is able to go for Glacial Lances. That will KO the Incineroar, that will start to get that Chilling Neigh going. May not KO the Groudon with the Reflect and the Intimidate at the moment, but as soon as you get those boosts going again, you could start to snowball, and you've got 4 turns of Trick Room at the moment to be able to try and do that.
Yeah, and I think even for Narawitch, right, they didn't get too much damage onto that Groudon during those full Dynamax turns. However, I think you were able to stall it out really as best as you could, especially because you forced it to target into the Charizard with 2 of its own Dynamax turns as well. So even though you did lose your Charizard and you didn't get up the Wildfire like you may have wanted, it might still have been useful just to kind of take the attention away. However, Calyrex is going to protect this turn, stopping a Fake Out, but Fake Out instead goes into the Groudon. Groudon still able, the opposing Groudon able to go for a Fire Punch. Like you said, this Groudon will be moving last. However, and you know, at this point too, it's really interesting because you can pretty comfortably go for that Fake Out knowing that it was an Assault Vest variant.
Yeah, absolutely, and the Calyrex missed an opportunity to go for a Glacial Lance there, but it's probably still in range of Fire Punch. The Sun is still active, so it's going to be getting that boost and may tip it over the edge to be a KO there. If the Calyrex is able to survive that Fire Punch, then it could be a very good position for Narawitch. Because this will be the last turn of the Reflect, and you'll get back up to neutral when you KO the Incineroar with the Glacial Lance, that may put the Groudon in range of the second Glacial Lance. So if it could just make it through this last turn, it could potentially be able to sweep the rest of the game with Glacial Lance. It'll just depend on if the Fire Punch is going to be enough. It's good for Szymon that he's got Fire Punch over Heavy Heat Crash, because both Pokemon are incredibly heavy. Fire Punch will be doing a little bit more here, but I wouldn't be surprised if this KOs the Incineroar, and then the Groudon's just going to have to be able to KO the Calyrex with the Fire Punch.
Yeah, Groudon able to take a good chunk of that damage, does get to under half of its HP, but Incineroar is now down for the count. You'll get that Chilling Neigh boost, but like you said, I think with the Sun as well, this Fire Punch damage is going to be pretty tough to kind of get through. And yeah, it is enough to get that knockout there. So now you have at least taken care of that big threat of the Calyrex on the other side of the field, but still taking some damage in the opposite side. Precipice Blades will connect this turn from the Groudon. Does not get it down to the red there. Reflect finally has worn off this turn, and now you can send in your Grimmsnarl and maybe try and get some extra boost. Try and bulk up your Pokemon that is going to be moving the slowest in this Trick Room stage.
Yeah, and with Calyrex being the last Pokemon for Szymon, Grimmsnarl might actually be that sweeper. It just depends on if it's going to have Foul Play or Spirit Break here. If it's Spirit Break, it probably won't be able to. If it's Foul Play, both Pokemon are probably going to be in range of that. The Calyrex just has to have its Focus Sash broken. Most Groudons are not run fast enough to still outspeed a Calyrex even with an Airstream boost, so assumedly if you've got Foul Play, you can just go for it into the Groudon, get that KO, break the Focus Sash with your own Groudon that should still underspeed the Calyrex, and then you shrug off all the Astral Barrages. Grimmsnarl might be the Trick Room sweeper that Narawitch needs here.
Yeah, and that's kind of something you don't always think about, right? Sending that Grimmsnarl out at the end of the game to pick up knockouts is not really what we've built Grimmsnarl to do, but it is running Foul Play. So Foul Play into the Groudon on Szymon's side of the field is enough to knock that Groudon out. No more dealing with another double target move like Precipice Blades, but Shadow Claw revealed on the Groudon as well. Brings that Calyrex down a bunch of damage. Still going to be able to get this Astral Barrage off onto both of these Pokemon. However, it's not going to be doing super effective damage to either one. Both of them able to hang on quite comfortably, and that really does wrap this game for Narawitch's side.
Yeah, it looked pretty good position for Szymon as soon as he got rid of the Charizard and it wasn't able to go for Wildfire, but that Trick Room was just very impactful. Getting the Calyrex into a position to just go for Glacial Lances, it got one of the Glacial Lances, that was enough because the Incineroar had taken so much damage. One of the downsides of it being able to survive there, the Light Screen just being set up so that you can take the Astral Barrages even better, but it doesn't really matter here. You didn't need the Foul Play because you've got the Shadow Claw to finish up that game 1.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, right, if you're Szymon, maybe, you know, at this point, the Grimmsnarl on the opposite side was definitely super helpful. Those tricks definitely paid off, but I almost wonder if it may be better to bring another option of your own, right? Oh, Jamie, that photo's so cute. I love it. So great.
Yeah, unfortunately my camera has stopped working, but so we'll just have to deal with this for now. At least you can still hear me. That's the important one. So yeah, that was interesting to see how impactful the Lagging Tail was, but still even getting rid of effectively most of the Dynamax was not enough. Just getting into that Trick Room position, everything getting chipped so low into Glacial Lance range with Incineroar, into Foul Play range with the Grimmsnarl, was all that was needed to just be able to get that sweep in the Trick Room.
I think something that's really interesting, right, as well, is they did go for that trick again and put the weakness policy on the Charizard, because one, they were able to fish for the Groudon's item, right? And then they knew they had nothing on their side that would super effectively hit that Groudon, so you could pretty comfortably put that weakness policy on there and know that you wouldn't worry about proccing it, especially, you know, when you had that Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back. That's not exactly running something like something that can do super effective damage to Groudon. They typically just try and muscle through it by being such a glass cannon with that big special attack.
Yeah, it can absolutely just get a snowball going just like the Calyrex Ice can do, but as soon as Trick Room's set up, there's too many threats for it, especially with Shadow Claw Assault Vest on the Groudon. Then you've got super effective damage from plenty of places. The Calyrex is still going to be doing huge damage with the Glacial Lance as well, so if you're going with the Calyrex, it may not be a good idea to leave it in the back, given that Trick Room can be set up on Narawitch's side. So you probably want to be going more on the offensive while you're out of the Trick Room with the Groudon. With the Calyrex Shadow, so that you can get those Astral Barrages going. You can potentially get those Grenade boosts as well, so that you can get the massive damage with the Astral Barrage, because it is pretty frail. As soon as the Trick Room goes up, most Pokemon would be able to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that's a really great way maybe for an adjustment from Szymon to adjust for this game too, right? You know that your Calyrex is way better outside of Trick Room than theirs is, because you can move faster, you can still get that super effective damage off. Incineroar and Grimmsnarl, though, once again bringing that lead out from game 1. However, Regieleki has joined the party this turn, paired with Groudon, so a nice little change-up, I think, here as well from Narawitch, maybe predicting something like a Calyrex lead.
Yeah, so a very interesting switch up from Narawitch, potentially trying to catch the Charizards. You've got 2 ground-type Pokemon on Szymon's side of the field, so it's still always very awkward to bring Regieleki to this kind of matchup, because if you catch a Charizard and get the Max Lightning into it, then you'll be able to deal with it very comfortably. But if you Max Lightning into 2 of the ground types, then it's a little bit more awkward. But we saw that Szymon didn't bring the Gastrodon at least, so there's only potentially the Groudon waiting in the back that could catch some of those Max Lightnings. So Regieleki could be looking pretty good here, but not if it's going to get tricked.
Yeah, Trick makes the most sense, right? Getting a Lagging Tail onto this Regieleki. Gonna get rid of that Life Orb as well. Volt Switch, though, targeting into the Incineroar, will get a bunch of damage off, just under half of that HP, and send this Regieleki back. Maybe bring in something to kind of handle both of these Pokemon a little bit better. You currently know as well, if you bring in something like your Calyrex Ice Rider, you're not going to get intimidated by the Incineroar as it's already on the field, and you're not going to have to worry. It has not been anything like a Reflect setup as of yet. Even their next turn would be a great turn to go for Reflect. Precipice Blades will connect this turn, though, and thanks to that Unnerve ability from the Calyrex Ice, the Incineroar was not able to eat its berry and does get knocked out this turn. Grimmsnarl also taking a critical hit on damage.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice whenever you switch in the Calyrex to stop that berry. Really, really nice positioning, especially with a Volt Switch as well. Get that damage that you needed. A hard switch wouldn't have done it. The Precipice Blade still wouldn't have picked up the KO on the Incineroar because of that Intimidate. So Volt Switching out, very nice. Even without the Life Orb was strong enough. Still doing a significant chunk of damage. And yeah, that Unnerve coming in clutch here to take care of that Incineroar. Parting Shot is immediately taken off the field. But Charizard was brought on Szymon's side of the field, so that Regieleki would have looked very good. But now it's got the Lagging Tail tricked onto it. Then it's not going to to be able to be the Charizard counter that it needs to be, because now the Charizard is looking in a fantastic position. You get the KO for sure on the Calyrex Ice, and you'll do a bunch of damage to the ground and potentially pick up the KO, most likely not with the Assault Vest variant, but if it goes to the Dynamax to the Groudon, it should be able to shrug it off as well. But you've still got Reflects that can be set on the Grimmsnarl's side of the field. You're facing down 2 physical attackers, and your Charizard is in the sun as well. So this is actually a very strong position for Szymon, even after losing that Incineroar immediately on that turn 1.
Yeah, Dynamax for Dynamax, though, that Gigantamax Charizard will be matched by the Groudon on this side from Narawitch. Still able to put on a ton of super effective damage if it needs to with a Max Rock Ball. Like you said, though, there is not a great spot for this Calyrex Ice Rider. It can't exactly go for something like a Trick Room without getting completely knocked out first. Groudon at least being able to take a little bit better this damage from the Charizard, but Grimmsnarl getting Reflect up first this turn definitely makes quite a lot of sense. Like you said, both of those big, strong physical attackers. G-Max Wildfire, no Protect this turn, targets down into that Calyrex Ice Rider, and is enough for that knockout. So Calyrex not really able to do anything in this match whatsoever. Not able to get any damage off or try and steamroll. Groudon able to go for a Max Rock Ball, though, not proccing something like a Charity Berry. So this Charizard still takes a bunch of damage, but that is not enough. It brings it down to just under half. That Intimidate and Reflect really paying off here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get rid of the sun, but then it's boosted again here, thanks to this weakness policy being on pretty much every Charizard at this point. So you can absolutely see why as well. It's shrugged off that Max Rockfall pretty comfortably, and it only took just over half with that Sand Chip as well. And now it is boosted further. It doesn't really need the Sun Boost anymore. It's still going to be doing so much damage with its attacks now. The Regieleki's been tricked, so it can't go for any of the Thunderbolts or Volt Switches anymore. And Incineroar's not really going to help you either. So at least you did overwrite the Sun. If the Sun was still up and the weakness policy was activated, Charizard KOs everything on Narawitch's side of the field. The Groudon should potentially still be able to survive though, and another Rockfall would be able to pick up the KO on that Charizard. You've got the Incineroar on the field that could put a stop to any of the tricks from the Grimmsnarl, because if you trick away the Assault Vest on the Groudon, then it may be in range of the attack that come out from that boosted Charizard. With the Assault Vest, it should be able to survive the attack though, so if you go for the Fake Out onto the Grimmsnarl with the Incineroar, that would allow it to keep that Assault Vest probably survive as well, and Fake Out with the Sand Chip as well at the end of the turn may even knock out that Grimmsnarl, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that at all. We'll have to see if the Charizard is going to be strong enough, thanks to that Sand overwriting the Sun, to still be able to KO this Groudon, because if it is, Charizard just steamrolls the entire game. If it doesn't, then you're still going to be able to do a massive amount of damage to the opposing Groudon, put it in range of maybe your own Groudon that's switching in, and still be in a very strong position.
Yeah, Groudon switching in here, changing that weather from that Sand that was just set up by that Max Rockfall on the prior turn. Max Guard from the Charizard, though, just going to take it slow, one step at a time. Incineroar's Fake Out goes into that Groudon that did switch in, so no chance of something like a trick from that Grimmsnarl. Would have been interesting as well to see if it tricked away that Assault Vest, gave the Groudon a Life Orb, and if the Groudon still survived, would have been able to maybe take some Life Orb chip and then get knocked out. That was kind of the weird piece that I was maybe anticipating.
Yeah, but Szymon managed to call that move perfectly.
Yeah.
You were almost forced to go for Fake Out and Rockfall that turn, because like we said, the Assault Vest needed to be on the Groudon to almost certainly allow the Charizard not to KO the Groudon, but positioning your Groudon in allows you to go for just Precipice Blade into the opposing Incineroar. You'll catch this Regieleki that's just switched in for it as well, and you'll also get an extra bit of chip onto the Groudon, because this Wildfire is doing so much damage, and it doesn't even matter because of that critical hit. So all of those wondering if the Assault Vest would allow that Groudon to survive, we will never know. It doesn't matter. A boosted Charizard in the sun is going to be doing so much damage there and knock out that Groudon. Precipice Blade connects, Regieleki's gone, and Szymon is going to sweep this game.
Charizard is one of those Pokemon, right, that has been oppressive almost the entire format. It won the very first regionals that we had in the United States in Dallas, and that was still just the Blaze Charizard, right? That wasn't even the Solar Power version. Even still, it is a Pokemon that is so oppressive in this format, and especially now for Narawitch, knowing that it is that weakness policy, you may have to be a little bit more careful moving forward, right? I do not believe his Grimmsnarl, I'm not sure if his Grimmsnarl is running Trick. I did not catch it when I got to kind of peek at the moves. However, I think you probably need to worry now, because that Charizard didn't even come in game 1 and it came in this game. Now you have to assume probably it was so good in this game and you didn't even miss having that Calyrex Shadow Rider that it's probably going to want to come in the next game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a very good switch up there. Not bringing the Calyrex Shadow. You saw how not effective at all the Calyrex Shadow was. So switching up for the Charizard made a lot of sense, and you saw the impact in that game. And you can see why weakness policy is on the Charizard so often now, because it got activated and now it just sweeps the entirety of the game. So you do need to be very, very careful going up against the Charizard. Now, if the Regieleki is going to be your answer, don't let it get tricked turn 1, else it's not going to be the answer at all anymore, because you'll be moving last after the Charizard every single turn going forwards. So I did like the bring of the Regieleki as well. That was a very good switch up from Narawitch, because you bring the Regieleki if you're expecting the Charizard, which did end up coming, but just in the back instead. So if the Regieleki is going to be the Charizard answer, don't let it get tricked. Maybe switch out immediately without a Volt Switch. Even though that Volt Switch was so cool, getting the Unnerve to KO the Incineroar before in the passing shots, that gave a paid switch into the Charizard that just ended up sweeping the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the dichotomy between both of the restricteds on either side of the field, right? You do have both of Groudon, but it's the two different horses, really, right? Having the Shadow Rider and having the Ice Rider, both of them do very different things. And it's really nice, I think, for me to see Szymon leave that restricted in the back, right? Because Charizard, almost with a weakness policy boost, really acts as a third restricted on the team. It is just that strong and just that oppressive. And being able to make the most use of the Dynamax turns, even if you went for a max guard, you still the max guard was still your best option at the time, right? Because you were able to still make the most of those 3 turns that you had. But Grimmsnarl and Groudon will be the lead here. And then the Groudon and Regieleki are the lead on the opposite side. So once again, the threat of that trick.
Yeah, you do want to be switching out the Regieleki. You don't want to be facing down Groudon at all. But do you go for Volt Switch into the Grimmsnarl? That will do a very nice chunk of damage into Grimmsnarl, but it opens up the possibility of that trick. And if Regieleki catches that, it's not the Charizard answer anymore. You've got to assume there's a Charizard waiting in the back, given how impactful it was for Szymon in that last game. Of course, he could have switched it up back to the Calyrex Shadow. But we'll have to see what this Regieleki is going to be doing, because it could very much just go for an immediate hard switch out. It doesn't have to Volt Switch. It can just switch out. If it's switching into the Incineroar, though, that would be nice to intimidate the Groudon. That would not get tricked, though, if that is the target because of the Dark typing. So then the trick would still be available in the future. So it's still an awkward position for Narawitch. Like, do you want to just be getting the switch out with the Volt Switch, get the damage into the Grimmsnarl, or do you just go for the Incineroar switch in, but then the trick stays on the Grimmsnarl? It seems like the trick is going to be launched off into that Regieleki that is most likely going for the Volt Switch this turn, so that is no longer going to be a Charizard counter.
Yeah, and you're still, like you said, you're still able to do a pretty nice deal of damage there, but now the problem is that, like you said, you're moving last. You're not going to be able to move before something like an Airstream, before something like a G-Max Wildfire on the opposite side of the field, especially if the Grimmsnarl on the opposite side can set up some more light screens if in case of a Charizard, and set up something like a Reflect in case of many physical attackers. Precipice Blades, though, not able to knock the Grimmsnarl out. Groudon also hanging on with plenty of HP, fires back with a Precipice Blades of its own, brings the Grimmsnarl on Narawitch's side down to under 50%, but that is a huge survive there on Szymon's side.
Yeah, that is important. That gives a screen on Szymon's side of the field. Most likely going to be the Reflect. You've seen the Regieleki come to the field as well. You don't really need to be worrying about the light screen anymore. You want to be getting the Reflect up like we are seeing there. And the light screen on Narawitch's side of the field as well. So going to be just setting up those screens without that 1 HP survival, very impactful. You only get 1 screen because that Precipice Blades is going to connect this time and KO it, but that's all you need. That Reflect is going to be incredibly useful, because you saw how much the damage reduction came into play on that Charizard with the Rockfall. More Precipice Blades are being launched off, and the Grimmsnarl does survive on Narawitch's side of the field as well, which is going to most likely come into play. You get a second screen if you do want, or you go for the speed control with the Grimmsnarl as well. So very, very nice survivals for both Grimmsnarls coming out here.
Yeah, but this Grimmsnarl may not be able to deal with something like a Fake Out from the Incineroar on the opposite side of the field, may just have enough HP to get knocked out by that. Like you said, though, there is still the nice opportunity to maybe send in, or to maybe just try and get some big damage off this turn. Like you said, the Reflect paid hugely for Szymon in the prior games, right? Even seeing the Groudon in the first game, even though he did not win, having an Intimidate and a Reflect meant that the Precipice Blades from Narawitch's Groudon did very little damage. However, Precipice Blades goes off this turn, does not hit the Groudon after seeing a lot of Precipice Blades hits. I knew it was coming into the Incineroar with the Shuka Berry, does very little damage as well. And, I think at this point, Precipice Blades from the Groudon on the opposite side actually avoids, I believe, the Regieleki here, which would be really huge. Does only do the damage. No, it was, I mixed it up there. Does knock out the Regieleki, but the Groudon on the other side of the field does actually stay intact, but will get a parting shot to boot from the Incineroar on Szymon's side.
Yeah, if you're going to miss one, you'd actually prefer to miss the Regieleki, because you just go for a Precipice Blade in the future because the Langing Tail, and you'll be able to KO it whenever you want. But still KOing it this turn is still nice. You've got to chip away at the Pokemon, and you just know that the electric type moves are just completely taken off the field now with this Charizard switching in for Simone's side of the field. And again, fantastic position for this Charizard. The Groudon has been chipped very heavily. It can't really Dynamax anymore to survive the Wildfire that come out, and Calyrex Ice does not survive the Wildfire at all as well. At least you get the threat of potentially Rockfall and Trick Room, and Szymon has to choose one of them to stop, because I don't think he'll be able to stop both of them, especially if the ground does choose to go for the Dynamax. You could try and Dynamax the Calyrex Ice, but I'm not sure that's going to allow it to survive a Wildfire that is in the sun. If it wasn't in the sun, then it would probably survive, but in the sun, it's going to be pretty close if it's able to survive. It is a very, very bulky Pokemon, but Charizard is so strong in the sun as well. And then you still get to do the extra damage with your own Groudon as well. Both Groudons are chipped below into the yellow at this point, both in similar positions, but it's much stronger position for Dynamax to come out on Simone's side of the field with that Charizard, because Calyrex Ice is the one you'd want to Dynamax in this game. You've taken half HP on the Groudon, but Calyrex Ice Dynamax in front of a Charizard is just going to be incredibly brave if it does.
Incineroar switching out here, a great way to set up Intimidate, also being paired with the Reflect on Simone's side, really just trying to mitigate anything from these two physical attackers on Narawitch's end, both the Calyrex and the Groudon. However, looks like Szymon is going to be starting with a Gigantamax of his own in that Charizard, able to, like you said, put on so much pressure onto really both of these Pokemon. It does put you into kind of a funky 50-50, but it's still a better 50-50 than trying to maybe go for Heat Wave and get a burn or a knockout there or a critical hit. Instead, at this point, you can guarantee something like a knockout, even guarantee some residual damage, but Narawitch will be maxing a Dynamax for Dynamax here, and I do believe that he actually is choosing to Dynamax that Calyrex Ice Rider this turn, if from what I saw is correct. So this may kind of be his only way to deal with the damage output from the Charizard on the opposite side of the field. Something like a Max Guard maybe will at least kind of be able to prep and stop him and maybe try and go for something like a Stone Edge this turn. Max Guard is the move choice from Narawitch, so maybe just trying to get this Charizard off of the field right now. But G-Max Wildfire targeted into that Groudon, a great choice of target, because thanks to that Sun, even with the Assault Vest, you're able to get that knockout onto the Groudon, prevent getting knocked out on your own, and still scare the heck out of this this Calyrex Ice Rider on the opposite side of the field.
Yeah, very nice target for Szymon there. Catching the Max Guard very, very nicely. The Incineroar has come in and intimidated the Calyrex as well, so that's not looking in a very good position as well. And with Grimmsnarl being the final Pokemon that low as well, with Incineroar just joining the field, it can go for a fake-out KO, so I can just put a stop to the Grimmsnarl in that regard as well. And now you just get to go for a Wildfire into the opposing Calyrex, completely unopposed. Even if it is able to survive that attack, you've still got a lot of firepower left on Szymon's side of the field. The Wildfire survival on Narawitch's side of the field would just be in range of any attack from the Incineroar coming out as well. So this is going to be a very, very comfortable position for Szymon. Very nice catching that the Groudon with the Wildfire and ignoring that Max Guard. And you get the fabled Fake Out KO.
Yeah, obviously Incineroar's best play to just get as many knockouts as it can as quickly as it can by pressing Fake Out first. But G-Max Wildfire, plenty enough damage here to get the knockout onto the Calyrex Ice Rider on the opposite side of the field. Wasn't able to make use of any of its Dynamax turns. And that means as well that Szymon has at least guaranteed one victory here against Thailand, which still keeps them in the running. So currently it is 3-1 from Thailand to Poland. So that means that it is not over for them yet. There are no, there is no chance that they have to play out the rest of the games and just be like, oh, we already lost, but we have to play them out. There's still a chance for them to win. They do have to do that kind of reverse sweep, get 4 wins in a row, and then they'd be moving on into the top 4, which I think is a really strong way to move on in the competition from such a big comeback. This is a terrible reference for me to make, but the sports reference of the Red Sox and the Yankees in 2004 being 0-3 and then winning 4 straight and then going on to win the World Series. And, you know, it's having that kind of momentum really does play a huge role in team morale.
Sorry, I'm British. I didn't get the reference. So
baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, That 3-0 turning into the 3-1, the donut turning into a 1. Very nice coming out here. And we are going to be, hopefully, maybe seeing a comeback from Poland. If we get to that 3-3, that is going to be all to play for as well. But we still got three match points coming out for Thailand side of the field. They are still in a comfortable position, but we can see that Poland are now fighting back.
Yeah, however, that is just one match of the 5 that we have for you guys today. The next match that is coming up is one that I'm super excited about. It is going to be between Canada and India. So make sure you do not go anywhere during the short break. We will be back very soon with another exciting top 8 matchup.